The diplomatic failure. The warning. No one believed Ambassador Marcus Webb stood before the Galactic Assembly and felt the weight of futility pressing against his chest. He had been Earth's voice among the stars for 12 years, and in that time, he had learned to recognize when diplomacy had already failed. Today was one of those days. The assembly hall was a marvel of engineering, a floating sphere of crystalline material that hovered above the capital world of Zentari Prime. Inside, representatives from 63 species sat in their designated zones, each area customized for their specific environmental needs. The Korvath delegation occupied the northern quadrant, their towering forms suited in armor that gleamed like polished obsidian under the hall's artificial lighting. Marcus adjusted his formal jacket and waited for silence. It did not come naturally. The various species chittered, hummed, and vocalized their impatience in a symphony of alien communication. Finally, High Chancellor Torvex, a being whose species had explored space for 20,000 years, raised one of his 4 crystalline hands. Ambassador Webb, Torvex said. His voice translated instantly into every language present. You have requested emergency session time. The Assembly grants you 5 minutes to present your concerns. 5 minutes. Marcus had asked for 30. He swallowed his frustration and began. Honorable Chancellor, esteemed delegates, Earth formally protests the Korvath Empire's military expansion into the Aurelia Corridor. This region was designated as neutral space under the Treaty of 7 Stars, which both humanity and the Korvath signed 40 years ago. Commander Zafara of the Korvath rose from her seat. She was massive, even by her species standards, standing nearly 3 meters tall. Her forearms crossed in what Marcus had learned was a gesture of dismissal. The human speaks of treaties we honored when his species was worth honoring, Zafara said, her voice like grinding stone. But humanity has shown its true nature. You hoard resources. You refuse to share technology. You build weapons in secret and call them defensive installations. Marcus kept his expression neutral. Commander, Earth has shared every technology required by Assembly law. Our defensive installations are exactly that, defensive. They cannot leave our designated territories. We have submitted full specifications to the Assembly Review Board. Specifications that make no sense, Zafara countered. Your weapons are primitive. Chemical propulsion, kinetic force, electromagnetic acceleration, technologies that we abandoned millennia ago, yet you build them on a scale that suggests aggression, not defense. A rumble of agreement spread through the hall. Marcus had expected this. Earth's military philosophy confused the older species. While they had advanced to energy weapons, particle beams, and quantum disruptors, humanity had taken a different path. Humans had perfected the ancient art of throwing rocks, just much faster, and with mathematical precision that bordered on prophetic. The Korvath military has assembled a fleet of 500 warships at the edge of the Aurelia Corridor, Marcus said, projecting images onto the central display. This is a clear violation of the Neutral Zone Agreement. We ask the Assembly to enforce the treaty. Torvex studied the images with eyes that had witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations. Ambassador Webb, the Korvath claim they are conducting military exercises in unclaimed space. The Aurelia Corridor is not unclaimed, Marcus insisted. It serves as a buffer zone between Korvath and human territories. It was specifically designated neutral to prevent exactly this kind of military buildup. Zafara laughed, a sound like metal scraping metal. The human fears us. This is natural. Humanity has been part of this assembly for only 75 years. You are children playing at galactic politics. The Korvath Empire has maintained order in this region for 8,000 years. We will continue to do so, with or without human approval. Marcus felt his jaw tighten. He had to make them understand. Commander Zafara, I am not speaking from fear. I am speaking from experience. Human experience. We urge you to respect the neutral zone. If your fleet crosses into the Aurelia Corridor, our defensive protocols will activate. What protocols? A delegate from the insectoid Threx species asked, their antennae twitching with curiosity. The Silent Protocol, Marcus said. It is an automated defense network designed to protect neutral zones from military incursion. We installed it 40 years ago with full Assembly approval. It has detailed specifications on file. Zafara's expression twisted into what Marcus recognized as contempt. We have reviewed your so-called Silent Protocol. Automated platforms with kinetic weapons. Projectiles thrown through space like primitive spears. Our shields can deflect energy weapons capable of vaporizing moons. What do we have to fear from your metal pebbles? Marcus took a breath. This was the moment he had dreaded. Commander, I strongly advise you to reconsider. The silent protocol is not designed to be impressive. It is designed to be effective. If your fleet enters the corridor with weapons active, the system will interpret it as an act of war. Then let it, Zephyra said, spreading her forearms wide. Let your automated toys fire their little rocks at us. We will sweep them aside like dust and establish our rightful presence in the corridor. Perhaps then humanity will learn its place in the galactic order. The assembly erupted in discussion. Some species voiced concern, but most seemed to side with the Korvath. Humanity was young, inexperienced, and apparently paranoid. The Korvath were ancient, powerful, and respected. The choice seemed obvious. High Chancellor Torvex raised his hands for silence. Ambassador Webb, the Assembly recognizes your concerns. However, military exercises in unclaimed space are not prohibited by Assembly law. The Korvath have assured us they have no hostile intent toward humanity. The corridor is not unclaimed, Marcus repeated, but he knew it was useless. The Korvath fleet will proceed with their exercises, Torvex declared. However, we instruct Commander Zephyra to maintain peaceful intent and to avoid any actions that might be misinterpreted as aggressive. Zephyra inclined her head in what might have been agreement or mockery. Marcus could not tell which. High Chancellor, Marcus said, his voice carrying an edge of desperation he could not hide. I am formally requesting that the Korvath fleet powers down all weapon systems before entering the corridor. I'm requesting they transmit diplomatic clearance codes. I am requesting they approach slowly and follow the established protocols for neutral zone transit. Your requests are noted, Torvex said in a tone that suggested they would be promptly ignored. Marcus looked around the chamber at the 63 species who shared this galaxy. Some watched him with pity, others with amusement, a few with genuine concern, but none would act. He had one more card to play, though he knew it would sound like an empty threat. If the Korvath fleet enters the Aurelia corridor with weapons active and without proper clearance, the silent protocol will engage. It will not distinguish between exercises and invasion. It will not hesitate. It will not negotiate. He locked eyes with Zephyra. Commander, humanity learned a terrible lesson in our history. We learned it in our world wars, our genocides, our centuries of conflict. The lesson is this. When someone tells you they will defend themselves, believe them. Zephyra smiled, showing rows of sharp crystalline teeth. Ambassador Webb, humanity is about to learn a different lesson. In the galaxy, power is not determined by threats or warnings. It is determined by capability. And your species lacks the capability to challenge us. The assembly session ended shortly after. Marcus returned to his quarters and immediately opened a secure channel to Earth Command. This is Ambassador Webb. The assembly has refused to intervene. The Korvath fleet will enter the Aurelia corridor within 48 hours. They will not follow protocols. They will not request clearance. There was a long pause. Then Admiral Sarah Chen's voice came through, steady but sad. Understood, Ambassador. We will prepare diplomatic channels for aftermath negotiations. And the silent protocol? Marcus asked, though he already knew the answer. The silent protocol will do what it was designed to do, Chen said. Protect the neutral zone. We built it for exactly this scenario, Marcus. We built it because we knew this day would come. Marcus closed the connection and sat in silence. He had done everything a diplomat could do. He had warned them. He had begged them. He had followed every protocol and procedure. Now all he could do was wait for the Korvath to learn what humanity had tried so desperately to teach them peacefully. Never ignore a warning from someone who has survived by learning when to fight and how to win. The Korvath fleet began its journey toward the Aurelia corridor 12 hours later. 500 warships moving in perfect formation, weapons charged and ready to demonstrate their superiority. In their arrogance, they had forgotten the most important rule of galactic politics. The species that survives is not always the strongest or the most advanced. Sometimes it is simply the one that takes survival seriously enough to prepare for the worst while hoping for the best. The Awakening, when silence speaks. The Korvath war fleet moved through space like a predator that had never known fear. 500 vessels arranged in battle formation, each ship a masterpiece of military engineering, representing 8 millennia of technological advancement. Energy shields shimmered around hulls designed to withstand the detonation of small stars. Weapons arrays capable of reducing planets to atomic dust gleamed in the light of distant suns. At the center of this armada, aboard the flagship Dominant Fang, Commander Zephyra reviewed tactical displays with satisfaction. Her forearms moved across holographic controls, examining every detail of her fleet's approach to the Aurelia corridor. "Status report," she commanded. Her tactical officer, a young Korvath named Drexus, responded immediately. "Commander, all ships report full combat readiness. Shields at maximum capacity. Weapons charged to 95%. We will reach the boundary of the neutral zone in 18 minutes. Sensor readings on human defensive installations. We have identified 347 platforms distributed throughout the corridor. They match the specifications humans submitted to the assembly. Simple kinetic weapons with electromagnetic acceleration. No energy signatures suggesting advanced technology. No shielding detected. They appear to be entirely automated." Zephyra made a sound of amusement. 300 platforms against 500 warships. The humans must be desperate or delusional. "Commander," Drexus said hesitantly, "we have received multiple automated warnings from the Human Defense Network. They are requesting we power down weapons and transmit diplomatic clearance codes." "Ignore them," Zephyra said. "We are conducting military exercises in space that rightfully belongs to no one. We will not be dictated to by a species that only learned to leave their world 75 years ago." Deep within the Aurelia corridor, systems that had waited silently for 40 years began to wake. The silent protocol was not a single entity. It was a distributed network of 347 automated platforms, each connected to a central coordination intelligence that humanity had simply named Sentinel. Unlike the artificial intelligences that other species created, Sentinel had been designed with a singular purpose: prevent unauthorized military incursion into the neutral zone. Sentinel did not have emotions. It did not feel fear or anger or satisfaction. It simply observed, calculated, and when necessary, acted. At 1422 Galactic Standard Time, Sentinel registered 500 Korvath vessels crossing into the Aurelia corridor with active weapons systems and no diplomatic clearance. It cross-referenced this data against its core programming and reached a conclusion in 0.003 seconds. Threat confirmed. Engagement authorized. Sentinel sent activation signals to all platforms. Across millions of cubic kilometers of space, weapon systems that had been dormant for decades powered up in perfect synchronization. On the Dominant Fang, alarms began to sound. "Commander," Drexus shouted, "all human platforms are activating simultaneously. Weapons are charging. We are being targeted." Zephyra leaned forward, her four hands gripping her command throne. "How many platforms are locking onto us?" "All of them, Commander. Every platform is targeting multiple ships. I am reading 347 distinct targeting solutions. Impossible. No coordination system could manage that level of complexity without significant communication lag. Nevertheless, Commander, they have achieved target lock on our entire fleet." Zephyra's eyes narrowed. "Open fire. Destroy the nearest platforms. Show these humans the cost of threatening the Korvath Empire." 50 Korvath warships fired simultaneously. Particle beams, plasma bolts, and quantum missiles streaked through space toward the nearest human platforms. The weapons struck with devastating force, each blast carrying enough energy to vaporize a small asteroid. The human platforms did not dodge. They did not raise shields because they had no shields to raise. They simply absorbed the impacts, their thick armor plating melting and vaporizing under the assault. 23 platforms were destroyed in the first volley. "Target eliminated," Drexus reported. "Multiple platforms destroyed. The humans are..." The remaining 324 platforms fired. What happened next would be analyzed by military strategists across the galaxy for generations. The human weapons did not use energy beams or explosive missiles. They used something far simpler and far more terrible. Each platform launched a single projectile. These were not sophisticated weapons. They were cylinders of depleted uranium, tungsten, and other dense metals. Each projectile weighed approximately 200 kilograms. There was no guidance system, no explosive warhead, nothing except mass and velocity. But the velocity was extraordinary. Using electromagnetic rails that stretched for kilometers inside each platform, the projectiles had been accelerated to 42% of light speed. At such velocities, mass became irrelevant. Energy became everything. And the energy carried by 200 kilograms moving at 0.42 c was enough to crack a moon. Sentinel had calculated trajectory, velocity, and impact point for every projectile. It had accounted for the Korvath ship's positions, their likely evasion patterns, even the gravitational effects of nearby stellar bodies. It had done all of this in the time it took a human heart to beat once. The projectiles crossed the distance to their targets in 1.7 seconds. The Korvath shields, designed to deflect and absorb energy weapons, did nothing against solid matter moving at relativistic speeds. The physics were brutal and unyielding. When an object carrying that much kinetic energy struck a shield designed for energy dissipation, the shield simply failed to register the threat until it was too late. 73 Korvath warships died in the first 3 seconds. The projectiles punched through shields like they were not there. They corded through armor that could withstand stellar fusion. They passed through the ships from bow to stern, their passage creating catastrophic structural failures. Some ships exploded as reactors were breached. Others simply broke apart, their hulls unable to withstand the trauma. A few died silently, their crews killed instantly as projectiles passed through crew sections at speeds that turned atmosphere into plasma. On the dominant Fang, Zephyra watched in horror as her fleet dissolved around her. Evasive maneuvers, she screamed. All ships scatter formation, emergency power to shields, but Sentinel had already calculated their evasion patterns. The second wave launched before the first had even finished its deadly work. This time 296 platforms fired. Sentinel had adjusted for the Korvath attempts to evade. It had predicted their movements with terrifying accuracy. 142 more ships died. They're predicting our maneuvers, Drexus shouted over the chaos. Every time we change course, they've already adjusted their aim. Zephyra's mind raced. 8,000 years of military tradition had not prepared her for this. The Korvath had fought wars against species with technology far more advanced than humanity's. They had survived conflicts that spanned centuries, but they had always fought enemies who used weapons they understood. This was different. This was not sophisticated. It was primal. It was someone taking the oldest weapon in existence, a thrown rock, and perfecting it to a degree that made sophistication irrelevant. Jump drives, Zephyra commanded. Emergency jump. All ships retreat immediately. Charging jump drives, Commander. 30 seconds to jump capability. 30 seconds might as well have been 30 years. The third wave fired, then the fourth, then the fifth. Sentinel did not pause. It did not hesitate. It simply continued to solve the mathematical problem of eliminating threats to the neutral zone. Ships tried to run. Sentinel calculated their jump coordinates and destroyed them before their drives could engage. Ships tried to fight. Sentinel ignored their weapons fire and continued its methodical elimination of targets. Ships tried to surrender, broadcasting ceasefire requests on all frequencies. Sentinel had no protocol for accepting surrender. It had only one protocol: eliminate unauthorized military presence in the neutral zone. By the time the surviving Korvath vessels managed to engage their emergency jump drives, 379 ships had been destroyed. 121 ships escaped, many of them damaged, all of them traumatized. The entire engagement had lasted 4 minutes and 18 seconds. When it was over, Sentinel performed a final scan of the corridor. No unauthorized military vessels detected. Threat eliminated. The platforms began their power-down sequence, returning to silent vigilance. In the debris field that had once been the pride of the Korvath Empire, escape pods drifted among the wreckage. Inside them, survivors tried to comprehend what had happened. They had been the hunters, confident and superior. In less than 5 minutes, they had become prey. Commander Zephyra sat in the ruins of her command center aboard the dominant Fang, which had survived only because it had been at the rear of the formation. Around her, officers worked frantically to save what remained of her fleet. How many? She asked quietly. Drexus, his voice broken, answered. 379 confirmed destroyed. Estimated casualties: 74,000 Korvath warriors. 74,000. Dead in less than 5 minutes. Killed by weapons that the Assembly had called primitive. Destroyed by a species they had mocked as inexperienced children. Zephyra's hands trembled as she opened a communication channel. This is Commander Zephyra to Korvath High Command. The fleet has been destroyed. requesting immediate reinforcements and— "No," a new voice interrupted. It was cold, measured, and entirely without mercy. "There will be no reinforcements." Zephyra recognized the voice. Admiral Sarah Chen of Earth Command. "This is a secure Korvath military channel," Zephyra said. "How did you— Commander, we have been monitoring your communications since you entered the corridor. We tried to warn you. Ambassador Webb tried to warn you. The Assembly tried to warn you. You chose not to listen. You murdered 74,000. You brought 74,000 warriors into a neutral zone with weapons charged and hostile intent," Chen interrupted. "They died because their commander ignored every warning, violated every protocol, and assumed that age meant wisdom." Zephyra said nothing. What could she say? "Commander," Chen continued, her voice softening slightly, "take your survivors home. Take them home and tell your people what happened here. Tell them that humanity does not make threats. We make promises, and when we promise to defend something, we mean it." The communication ended. Zephyra sat in silence, surrounded by the ruins of her pride and the ghosts of 74,000 warriors who had followed her into this disaster. The galaxy would learn of this day. The species who had mocked humanity would learn a new kind of fear. Not fear of sophisticated weapons or advanced technology, but fear of a species that had perfected the ancient art of violence and wrapped it in mathematics so precise it bordered on prophecy. The silent protocol had spoken, and its voice had been deafening. The reckoning, the truth behind the Defense Ambassador Marcus Webb returned to the Galactic Assembly 3 days after the Aurelia Corridor incident. This time he was not requesting emergency session time. He had been summoned. Every species representative was present. The chamber, usually filled with casual conversation and political maneuvering, was silent. High Chancellor Torvex presided over the session, his crystalline features unreadable. Beside him sat Commander Zephyra, no longer proud and towering, but diminished by the weight of her failure. The Korvath delegation had been reduced to 3 representatives. The rest had died in the corridor. Marcus walked to the center of the chamber. He carried no notes, no prepared speeches. He had known this moment would come since the day humanity had installed the first silent protocol platform 40 years ago. "Ambassador Webb," Torvex began, his voice heavy, "the Assembly has reviewed all data from the incident in the Aurelia Corridor. 379 Korvath vessels were destroyed. 74,000 beings are dead. The galaxy demands answers." Marcus nodded slowly. "I will answer any questions the Assembly has." A delegate from the Threx species, her antennae vibrating with agitation, spoke first. "Ambassador, your defense system killed without hesitation, without mercy, without accepting surrender. This is a violation of every principle the Assembly stands for." "Is it?" Marcus asked. "The silent protocol operated exactly as we said it would. We submitted full specifications 40 years ago. We warned Commander Zephyra repeatedly. We followed every diplomatic protocol. What principle did we violate? The principle of proportional response," the Threx delegate insisted. "Your system destroyed hundreds of ships for the crime of entering a disputed zone." "The Aurelia Corridor is not disputed," Marcus said firmly. "It was designated neutral space by treaty. A treaty the Korvath signed. They entered with 500 warships, weapons charged, ignoring all warnings. What would you call that if not an invasion?" Zephyra rose to her feet, her forearms trembling. "We were conducting exercises. We had no intention of attacking Earth." Marcus turned to face her. "Commander, I hold no personal anger toward you. You are a warrior who made a strategic error. But tell me this. If 500 human warships appeared at the edge of Korvath space with weapons charged, would your people call it exercises, or would they call it war?" Zephyra opened her mouth to respond, then closed it. The answer was obvious. "The problem," Marcus continued, addressing the full assembly, "is not that humanity defended itself. The problem is that you did not believe we would. You looked at our technology and saw primitiveness. You looked at our history and saw youth. You looked at our warnings and saw empty threats." He activated a holographic display showing the silent protocol's design specifications. "Every species in this chamber has access to these documents. The Assembly approved this defense network 40 years ago. We hid nothing. We lied about nothing. We built exactly what we said we would build. But why?" Torvex asked. "Why build such a devastating system to protect a neutral zone? Why not negotiate?" Why not find peaceful solutions? This was the question Marcus had been waiting for. Because we know something that most of you have forgotten. He changed the display to show images of ruined worlds, dead civilizations, and ancient battlefields. 35 years ago, a human archaeological expedition discovered evidence of what we call the Extinction Wars. 17 species wiped out completely. Billions of beings dead. The assembly records list these civilizations as dying from natural causes or internal conflicts. Murmurs spread through the chamber. But we found weapon signatures. Commander Zephyra's people have technology that can vaporize moons. The Threks have biological weapons that can sterilize planets. The Zelthari have temporal weapons that can erase events from history. But these extinct species, they died from something worse. They died from complacency. Marcus locked eyes with Torvex. They died because they trusted that the assembly would protect them. They died because they believed age and tradition guaranteed safety. They died because when something came for them, they were not prepared. You speak of legends, Torvex said, but his voice lacked conviction. Do I? Marcus pulled up classified assembly documents. Their security protocols bypassed by Earth's intelligence services. These are your own records, High Chancellor. Records of the harvester fleets that nearly destroyed galactic civilization 12,000 years ago. Records you keep classified because you fear the panic they would cause. The chamber erupted. Delegates shouting, demanding to know how humanity had accessed classified archives. Marcus waited for silence. We accessed them, he said simply, because we needed to know what we were preparing for. You see, the harvesters did not disappear. They retreated. And according to your own classified sensor data, they are returning. Torvex rose to his full height, and for the first time since Marcus had known him, the ancient being looked tired. Ambassador Webb, you have committed serious crimes by accessing those files. Charge me if you wish, Marcus said. But first answer this question. Why did you invite humanity to join the assembly 50 years ago? We had barely left our solar system. We had no technology you needed. We offered nothing of significant value. So why? The Chancellor was silent. I will tell you why, Marcus said. You studied humanity's history. You saw our 10,000 years of constant warfare. You saw how we perfected the art of killing our own species. You saw that we never stopped preparing for the next threat, the next war, the next disaster. And you thought, these violent children might be useful when the harvesters return. That is a gross oversimplification, Torvex began. Is it? You wanted warriors. You got diplomats. You wanted cannon fodder. You got engineers. So you grew frustrated with us. You began to see humanity as paranoid and aggressive rather than prepared and cautious. But here is what you failed to understand. Marcus walked slowly around the chamber, making eye contact with each delegate. Humanity did not build the silent protocol because we are paranoid. We built it because we are responsible. We are responsible to our own people, to the treaty partners who trust us to maintain the neutral zone, and yes, to the galaxy that will need every weapon, every strategy, and every warrior when the harvesters return. He stopped in front of Zephyra. Commander, I am truly sorry for your losses. 74,000 beings died because of a failure of communication, a failure of understanding, and a failure to take warnings seriously. But they did not die in vain if we learn from this. What lesson? Zephyra asked bitterly. That humanity is ruthless? We have learned that well enough. No, Marcus said. The lesson is that defensive capability is not the same as aggressive intent. Earth built a weapons system capable of destroying your fleet, but we used it only when every other option had been exhausted. We warned you, we begged you, we followed every protocol. Only when you forced our hand did we act. He turned back to the assembly. Humanity offers the galaxy a choice. You can see us as a threat, in which case we will remain behind our defenses and face the harvesters alone when they come. Or you can see us as what we truly are. Allies who take survival seriously enough to prepare for the worst while working tirelessly for the best. Torvex studied Marcus for a long moment. What are you proposing, Ambassador? Share your classified data with all assembly species. Let everyone know about the harvesters. Then let humanity help. We will share the silent protocol technology. We will help other species build defensive networks. We will train your warriors in tactics that do not rely on technological superiority. And when the harvesters come, we will fight together. And if we refuse? A delegate asked. Then we will fight alone, Marcus said simply. And when the harvesters have finished with us, they will come for you. and you will face them without the one species in this galaxy that still remembers how to fight, like survival depends on it. The assembly debated for 6 hours. Species argued for sanctions against Earth, for punishment, for isolation. But gradually a different consensus emerged. Fear played a role, certainly. The Korvath disaster had proven that humanity's weapons worked, but something else mattered more. Hope. In the end, High Chancellor Torvex called for a vote. The Assembly will decide. Should we accept Earth's proposal to share classified information about the Harvesters and collaborate on galactic defense? The vote was not unanimous. 12 species voted against, fearing humanity's military capabilities, but 43 species voted in favor. As the session ended, Commander Zafira approached Marcus privately. Her forearms hung at her sides, no longer threatening. "Ambassador Webb," she said quietly, "I want to understand. Your people killed 74,000 of mine, yet you speak of alliance, of cooperation. How can you propose working together after such bloodshed?" Marcus looked at the Korvath commander with genuine sympathy. "Commander, in human history some of our strongest alliances formed between former enemies. We fought 2 global wars against each other, killed millions and emerged afterward as partners. We learned that yesterday's enemy can become tomorrow's ally if both sides are willing to move beyond pride and toward survival. The families of my dead warriors will never forgive you." "I know," Marcus said, "and I carry that weight. But I also know that if we do not work together, many more families across this galaxy will lose their loved ones. The Harvesters do not care about our politics or our pride. They only care about consumption. We can face them divided and die separately, or we can face them united and maybe, just maybe, survive." Zephyra stood silent for a moment, then extended one of her 4 arms in the Korvath gesture of respect. Marcus took it. 6 months later, the first joint human-Korvath defense platform was activated in a system on the opposite side of the galaxy from the Aurelia corridor. It combined Korvath shield technology with human kinetic weapons. The platform was named Unity, a reminder that strength comes not from similarity but from the willingness to combine different capabilities toward a common goal. Ambassador Marcus Webb stood on the observation deck of Unity Station and watched as more platforms came online across the galaxy. 63 species working together, preparing for a threat that most of their populations still did not know existed. He thought about the 74,000 Korvath who had died in the corridor. He thought about the cost of preparing for war while hoping for peace. He thought about the countless beings who would live because different species had finally learned to see each other not as primitives or superiors, but as partners in survival. The Silent Protocol had done more than defend a neutral zone. It had forced the galaxy to confront an uncomfortable truth. The measure of a civilization is not its technology or its age, but its willingness to defend what matters and to acknowledge when others can teach it something new. Humanity had been young, inexperienced, and armed with primitive weapons, but they had also been prepared, determined, and honest about their capabilities. In the end, those qualities mattered more than any advanced technology. The Harvesters were coming, but when they arrived, they would find a galaxy united not by similarity or tradition, but by the shared understanding that survival requires both the wisdom of the old and the determination of the young. And somewhere in the vast darkness of space, the Silent Protocol platforms continued their eternal watch, ready to speak again if needed, but hoping that their silence would be enough.